Space is not silent. It's just waiting. We begin with a point of light, a galaxy, then another, and another. A dazzling web of stars stretches across the screen. The universe glows like an intricate cosmic tapestry, a masterpiece of light and matter. And then, a hole, an emptiness so vast it swallows not just stars, but the idea of stars, a dark scar slashed across the fabric of reality. This is the Boötes Void, a region so large it could swallow thousands of Milky Ways and still hunger for more. So empty it defies our understanding of cosmic structure. So ancient, it may have existed before galaxies even had names. Astronomers first found it in the 1980s. At first, they thought it was a mistake, a glitch in the data, a gap in the stars. But the more they looked, the more horrifying it became. This wasn't a gap, it was a message. Or worse, a warning. Because the deeper we stared into the void, the more it began to feel like it was staring back. What if this emptiness isn't empty at all? In 1981, a team of astronomers working on a galaxy survey at the Kitt Peak National Observatory in Arizona were charting the heavens, one sliver at a time. These scientists weren't looking for anomalies. They were mapping the expected, filling in the great cosmic census. They scanned sector after sector of deep space, plotting the locations of galaxies like points on an ancient star map. Then, a silence. Not an auditory silence, but a cosmic silence, a massive region where galaxies should have been but weren't. No spiral arms, no glowing cores, no clusters or jets of superheated gas. Just nothing. A deafening absence. At first, they thought it was a mistake, a data gap. Maybe the telescope had malfunctioned. Maybe clouds had obscured the image. But they ran the scans again and again, cross-referenced infrared data, checked radio waves, analyzed light curves. Everything came back clean. But the space remained stubbornly empty. The team, led by astronomer Robert Kirshner, had stumbled upon something utterly unexpected. Not a star, not a black hole, not a distant galaxy. They had discovered a void so massive it stretched across 330 million light-years of space. To comprehend this size, imagine stacking over 2,000 Milky Way galaxies end to end and still not reaching the edge. This wasn't just a region of low density, it was a wound in the structure of the universe itself. They named it after the constellation where it was found, Boötes, the herdsman. But the name did little to convey its scale or its sheer wrongness. Because the Boötes Void wasn't merely empty, it was unnaturally empty. In a typical region of space that size, we should expect to find thousands of galaxies, tens of thousands. Based on our understanding of the large-scale structure of the cosmos, what physicists call the cosmic web, the universe is not evenly distributed. It's a chaotic dance of matter, shaped by gravity, time, and dark energy. Galaxies cluster into groups, filaments stretch across millions of light-years, and between them lie voids, low-density regions like the spaces between threads in a spider's web. But the Boötes Void wasn't just a gap between filaments, it was a complete severing. Statistically, a region of space this large should contain at least 2,000 galaxies. The Boötes Void? It contains fewer than 60. That's one galaxy per 10 million cubic light-years, a density so low it shattered every model they had. And this raised a disturbing question. How does a void like this even exist? Let's zoom out for a moment. The universe, on a grand scale, resembles a vast web. Not a uniform soup, not a smooth canvas, but a structure. a three-dimensional network of matter drawn by gravity into long filaments and nodes, clusters where galaxies reside. These filaments form the skeleton of the universe. At the intersections are superclusters. Between the filaments are natural voids, regions where galaxies are sparse but not gone. But Boötes is different. It's not a valley between hills. It's a chasm in the middle of a mountain range, a space where the expected framework of the universe simply disappears. When Kirshner's team published their findings, the astrophysics community responded with disbelief. Cosmological models at the time did allow for voids, but nothing even remotely close to this. Some theorized that Boötes was an illusion, perhaps caused by dust clouds obscuring distant galaxies. But the wavelengths didn't support it. Others wondered if it was a gravitational lens, maybe a mass so large in front of the void was bending light around it, making it appear empty. But lensing effects leave traces. None were found. What they were left with was the terrifying conclusion that the Boötes Void was real. To explain it, some theorists turn to the idea of primordial fluctuations, ripples in the density of matter left over from the Big Bang. In the earliest moments of time, the universe was a chaotic furnace of creation. Minute fluctuations in energy density created the seeds of galaxy formation. Over billions of years, these denser regions grew into stars, galaxies, and clusters. So could Boötes be the result of one of those early fluctuations, a region where, by sheer cosmic chance, matter was never seeded? Maybe. But the odds of such an enormous symmetrical void forming without any major surrounding structure are astronomically low. And then, another theory emerged, one that disturbed even the most rational minds in science. What if the void wasn't a byproduct of random chance, but the result of a disruption? A cosmic event, older than galaxies, older than stars, that erased matter on a scale we can barely imagine. This disruption could have taken many forms: a massive energy wave, a phase transition during the universe's early expansion, a collision with another universe, or something even stranger, something not accounted for in our models. And that's when researchers began looking deeper, not just into the void's size, but its shape. What they found was unnerving. The Boötes Void isn't chaotic. It isn't amorphous like a random gas cloud. It's remarkably spherical, an almost perfect sphere of emptiness. And in physics, spherical symmetry is rarely meaningless. In nature, symmetry implies intent. Gravity creates spherical stars. Expansion creates spherical explosions. Symmetry is the fingerprint of underlying forces. So what created a sphere this massive, this empty, and this clean? Some began to speculate, not publicly but in private discussions and fringe papers, that the void might not be natural at all. Because nature, as chaotic as it is, rarely creates perfection. Could this be the aftershock of some kind of cosmic cleansing event? Could something have swept through this region, erasing matter? Not just absorbing it like a black hole, but removing it entirely. And if so, why? Even mainstream scientists admit the void poses problems for our understanding of lambda CDM cosmology, the standard model of the universe, which incorporates dark matter and dark energy. This model predicts the distribution of matter across the universe with surprising accuracy. Except, here, the Boötes Void is one of the most glaring violations of that model, a place where the numbers don't add up, a silence in a song that should be symphonic. And yet, it's there, floating in the heavens like a hole burned through the parchment of creation. But perhaps the most mind-bending idea didn't come from astrophysicists. It came from theorists who look at the universe as a simulation. Because if the cosmos behaves like code, and galaxies are nodes in a vast computational grid, what does a void represent? An error? A rendering issue? Or worse, an intentional gap left by the architect? It's an unsettling idea that the Boötes Void isn't a natural anomaly, but a blind spot, a region we were never meant to observe, never meant to question. A cosmic black box, a do-not-enter zone carved into the stars. And yet, we've seen it. We've pointed our telescopes into its depths, fired our questions into its silence, and received nothing in return. But even that silence may be telling us something, because in all the places we've explored, mapped, and theorized, nowhere is the absence of everything so complete, so precise, so wrong as in the Boötes Void. It is the antithesis of light, the graveyard of matter, the unspoken sentence in the story of the universe, and its presence raises one terrifying question that scientists still cannot answer. What happened here? The Boötes Void is not just a question of absence. It's a challenge to everything we think we know about the fabric of reality. Because if this colossal emptiness isn't natural, then it must be intentional. And if it's intentional, then someone or something intended it. Let's begin with what we can quantify. Because despite the unsettling implications, science demands we first look at natural explanations before leaping into the unknown. Yet, even in our most grounded theories, the Boötes Void remains resistant to simplification. One such possibility is rooted in the strange forces that dominate our universe, but remain invisible to us, namely dark matter and dark energy. These aren't fringe ideas. They are pillars of modern cosmology. Roughly 85% of the matter in the universe is thought to be dark matter, an unknown form of mass that doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light. We can't see it, but we can observe its gravitational pull. It holds galaxies together like scaffolding. Without it, the universe would unravel. Then there's dark energy, even more elusive. It makes up nearly 70% of the energy content of the universe, and it's responsible for the accelerating expansion of space itself. A silent, persistent pressure pushing everything apart. So what if, in the Boötes Void, these two forces aren't just present, but concentrated, warped, or corrupted? Some physicists have theorized that Boötes may be a gravitational anomaly, a region where the dark matter scaffolding collapsed or never formed properly, leaving a kind of cosmic sinkhole. Imagine the universe as a 3D web stretched across a dark ocean. Now imagine that web drooping in one spot, not from mass, but from an absence of it. This dark gravitational sink might not pull things inward like a black hole, but instead act as a repeller, a place where gravity simply fails to accumulate matter. But here's where it gets strange. Gravity doesn't just disappear. If the Boötes Void lacks matter, it should still bear the gravitational scars of what once was, or what should have been. But it doesn't. It's clean. Too clean. That has led some astrophysicists to entertain a terrifying possibility. What if the void was once full, and something erased it? This brings us to one of the more exotic, yet scientifically grounded theories: galactic cannibalism on a scale never before imagined. Galaxies often collide and merge. It's a slow, beautiful, violent dance that spans billions of years. But in rare circumstances, a chain reaction of galactic collisions, combined with the activity of supermassive black holes, could create a region where entire galaxies were swallowed, one by one, until nothing remained. Picture it. A cluster begins to fall inward. At the center lies a behemoth, perhaps a primordial black hole, billions of times more massive than our sun. One galaxy feeds it, then another, then 100. Over a few billion years, a chain reaction begins, not just accretion, but obliteration. And in the aftermath, nothing remains but darkness. But even this theory struggles with scale. The void is too large. The feeding frenzy would have needed to involve thousands of galaxies, perfectly aligned, and leave behind no detectable remnant. No gravitational waves, no X-ray echoes, no background radiation. Unless the event wasn't natural at all. Now we enter more speculative and more dangerous territory. Imagine for a moment that we're not alone in the universe, that somewhere out there, in the abyssal depths of space and time, a Type 3 civilization exists, a species not just harnessing the energy of its planet or star, but of its entire galaxy. On the Kardashev scale, which measures the technological advancement of civilizations by their energy consumption, humanity doesn't even rank as a full Type 1. We can barely control a fraction of our planet's power output. A Type 3 civilization, however, would operate on godlike scales. They wouldn't merely build cities, they would restructure stars, reprogram gravity, or bend space itself. They wouldn't need homes, they'd need entire sectors of the cosmos. So, what would such a civilization do with a region of space like Boötes? They might hide in it. One theory, called the cloaking hypothesis, suggests that advanced civilizations could build structures so large they obscure entire galaxies from view. Imagine a galaxy enshrouded in Dyson spheres or other megastructures that trap light, radiation, even gravitational waves. To us, the galaxy would vanish, not because it isn't there, but because it's been camouflaged. If enough galaxies were cloaked in this way, we'd see a void, a terrifyingly perfect void. Now consider the void as construct theory, an even deeper descent into cosmic possibility. What if the Boötes Void isn't a failure of formation or a zone of destruction, but a deliberate project? An engineered space, a blank canvas carved out by a civilization not bound by the laws of energy as we know them. To us, it would look like absence, but to its creators, it might be a resource, a workspace, a crucible for physics experiments on a universal scale. Maybe even a factory for creating pocket universes, black holes, or time loops. Could it be a forge of gods? A structure so advanced we cannot distinguish it from the fabric of reality. As science fiction as it sounds, some physicists are taking these ideas more seriously in recent years, not because we have proof, but because Boötes refuses to conform to any known explanation. And when a puzzle resists all logical frameworks, we are forced to confront the unimaginable. But perhaps the most existentially disturbing theory of all is that we are seeing a crack in the code. The simulation hypothesis has gained traction among some of the world's top thinkers, including Nick Bostrom and Elon Musk. The idea is simple, but shattering. What if our universe is a simulation, a program, a model, a hyper-complex rendering running on some post-human or post-cosmic machine? In such a framework, the laws of physics aren't laws. They're rules, enforced by a system that can be manipulated. And within that system, not all regions may be rendered at once. In video games, developers use a technique called occlusion culling, only rendering what the player sees. What if, on a cosmic level, Boötes is a region that was never rendered, a space behind the curtain, a null zone, a portion of the simulation marked "Do Not Populate"? Maybe it was never meant to be observed. Maybe it's a testing ground, a placeholder, or worse, an error, a scar in the system. And we, in our curiosity, have looked too far. When astronomers stare into the Boötes Void, what if they're staring not at the stars, but into the edge of the program, the boundary of the observable, the blinking cursor at the end of the universal script? This theory is not meant to be whimsical. It is meant to ask a very real question. Why does the void follow no rules we understand? And if it doesn't follow the rules, then either the rules are incomplete, or we are inside something far stranger than we ever imagined. These theories, cloaking civilizations, galactic consumption, simulation boundaries, might seem extreme. But science, at its best, is not about staying within comfort zones. It's about following the data, even when it leads to terror. And right now, the data from Boötes leads only deeper into unknowing. Still, in our efforts to avoid conspiracy, to remain grounded in empirical thought, we must remember one thing. The greatest discoveries often begin as heresy. At one time, it was heretical to say Earth wasn't the center of the universe. It was heretical to imagine time as relative. It was heretical to believe that black holes existed. And now, we find ourselves staring at a cosmic silence so vast, so precise, that it may contain either nothing at all or everything we're not ready to understand. Thank you for venturing with us into the abyss. The Boötes Void may be the most silent region in the universe, but today, you stared into it and made it echo. If this journey stirred something deep within you, a sense of wonder, or perhaps a sense of dread, then you're already part of something greater, the human quest to understand what lies beyond the edge. Subscribe to Uncharted Odyssey for more voyages into the unknown. And remember, sometimes the places that seem the most empty hold the greatest truths.